for those who were here yesterday, Prasad is Tejas's dad, and Grace is Buddy's mom. So you guys you've met their children, and they were fabulous yesterday on our panels. And so we're going to transition into a parent panel, and talking about, as we talked yesterday, and we heard from Tejas and Buddy and so many other men who now have gone off to college and beyond, and into adulthood, and some of the men that you met yesterday are married and have children. We want to step back and talk about, well, how do you get there, right? That doesn't happen overnight. And we want to talk about how do you even empower that as a parent. And there's a delicate dance between empowering that type of independence and then providing the much needed safety net around your children. And so that's what we're going to try and get into on this panel. And I think, as we'll see, that certainly doesn't happen overnight. And Buddy was really articulate and funny as he talked about his experiences in Oxford yesterday. I can tell you firsthand that I don't think Grace's first instinct was to embrace that experience. And so those things are not instinctual, right? Because as parents, we want to hold on to our children and protect them from the world. And so, so we're delighted to have you both here. Thank you for being with us. And so let's maybe start with introductions. And maybe, Grace, if you could start by introducing yourself and share a little bit about your story.
Okay, I'm Grace Cassidy. I live in Annandale, Virginia, so I'm nearby. I've been married for 31 years. I have 2 children, Buddy, who will be 26 in August, and Christina, who will be a junior at Virginia Tech. My experience with Duchenne, muscular dystrophy, goes back to my brother. I could have been on both sides, the previous panel as well as this one. I am one of 8, and I had 5 brothers and 3 sisters, and my youngest brother is the one who was diagnosed with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And at the time, I was a teenager, my sister was 9, another one was 16. We were all tested, and the only thing that was available at the time was the CPK blood testing, and it came back that none of us were carriers, and they just considered that it was a fluke or a mutation, that my mother's the youngest one and the only one. And I have 40-some first cousins. It's a traditional Irish Catholic family there. And nobody else, none of them were diagnosed with muscular dystrophy. So, you know, I grew up, I go to college, I meet my husband, we get married, and the thought of having a child with muscular dystrophy just never entered, you know, my thought process. But when Christopher was about 2 and he was walking very, very slowly, again, the thought never entered my head because my babysitter was an elderly woman who walked slowly. So I just thought he was walking at the same pace as her. But he did, you know, complain of cramps and things at the time, and we took him to the doctor, and it came back that this fluke was no longer a fluke. I was a carrier, my mother was a carrier, and it is now in our family. We did not let that define us. My mother, she treated my brother as all of the other, you know, 5 brothers. You know, they fall, they pick themselves up, and you carry on. And that's basically the way that my husband and I went about with raising Christopher. So my story starts there.
Great. Thanks, Grace. Prasad?
Yeah. Prasad Sarumpudi. I am from New Jersey. I have 2 children. One is 24. Another is 19 years old, Tejas Sarumpudi. He is the DMD. And of course, I have a service dog. Everybody knows me through my dog than anything else. Of course, Tejas now is in college. So like any other younger brother, the dog now is enjoying his elevator now. He takes the rides now, you know, since Tejas is not at home. Tejas also, initially, nobody in our family had DMD, we didn't know. Then later we found out his cousin also has DMD, who's the younger one, who is in Ohio, Columbus, Ohio. And my son, he talks to my son very often, and my son mentors him. I think it helps somebody who understands you who's in similar boat like you, so he talks to him quite often. And my son, we never thought, we never left him more than 1 hour alone. We are not even prepared. And he said, I'm going to apply to these colleges. I said, apply. When the time comes, we'll handle it. And I really wanted him to stay close, close to my home, Princeton. But he ended up in Boston. I was not prepared. I don't know how I handled it, but even now I pinch myself that he can live by himself. As a parent, I can't expect anything more than our kids living by themselves. So I'm glad.
Mm-hmm. So before we really spend a lot of time talking about the logistics of life today for your adult sons, can you talk about, as they were growing up in their childhoods, any formative moments that helped shape how you parented Buddy and Tejas?
Let's see, like I said, I got a lot of my parenting skills from my mother, and her outlook regarding my brother Eddie was to just trust yourself. She trusted herself. She said that she knows her child, and we know our children better than anyone else. And I hope there's no doctors here, including the doctors. They know the medical side, but you have to deal with the day-to-day side. So I remember an instance with my brother where it was later on, and he had to be on his trach. The doctor said all of the time. Well, that wasn't something that he wanted. Having so many siblings, he was out and about all the time. So they said at the hospital that he couldn't go home unless he committed to wearing this trach all of the time, his vent. And my mom said to him, yes, say you're going to do that, and when we get home, we'll figure it out. So that's basically the whole idea that I took with me. You have to trust your child. You have to trust yourself that you're going to make the right decisions. I've had lots of people along the line. They'll give me some advice. One of the very first doctors that we went to was Dr. Eng. And our very first visit, she came out to the waiting room. And, it was a pediatric waiting room, so there was things for the kids to jump on and climb and whatever. And they're all running around like banshees. And she just looks at me and my husband and she goes, don't do this to your child. And we didn't even know what this was. And she said, please treat them and teach them to be good, polite, respectful. Do not spoil them rotten. They will have it hard enough without being spoiled where that people don't want to help them. And that was when Chris was 3. And that just really stuck with me because I thought, I have to treat him the way I would treat my child who did not have a disability. And that's really how we did it. If there's things he wanted to do or we wanted to do with him and there was obstacles, we just found a way around it.
Prasad?
We didn't treat Tejas any differently because the disability is physical disability. So only that part we treated him separately, but the rest of the things is like any other kid in my house, and he has to go through the same thing. One thing we did with him more is we talked more. Most of the DMD kids constantly go through transitions. They need some, guidance or assurance or some, correcting their thought process. So that we talked more. We always focused more on his ability than disability. We shifted the focus most of the time. And I don't remember what my son says. I used to read him books about famous people with disabilities. I'm sure there are books there. I used to read my kids all the time books. I used to read them. And we met a lot of DMD kids who are leading successful lives. Some of them are in Princeton, some of them are in UPenn. He met many of them. He has one friend, He's called McGrath Solutions. He's a DMD kid. He started a company. His goal is to offer jobs for people with disabilities. So he knows, the DMD is not a limiting factor for him. So his goals were high.
That's great. So coming out of the sibling panel, can you talk about, you both have children who don't have muscular dystrophy also. Can you talk about things that you did when your kids were younger to try and intentionally balance the attention that you were giving to Buddy and Tejas with your other children who don't have muscular dystrophy?
That's a good question, and I'm up here today thinking that I'm imparting some great knowledge to you, and after that first panel, I sat there saying, wow, I'm them, and, yeah, and so as far as the bonding and the attention, and we don't really stress the differences in our house. Yeah, we're still waiting for the bonding to kick in with my daughter and my son. They fight, they get angry with each other. I am conscious of the fact that you can give the one more attention than the other. That did happen in our family, my brother Ed, and then the brother right before him, John. My brother Johnny, to this day, we still tease him because he's the only one that we say who went to a private school, but that was my parents. They felt guilty that Ed was getting so much attention, and they didn't think that John was. And at the time, none of us ever even thought about it. So I guess that's where I'm the same way with my daughter. We try not to stress the differences. It's just, this is what it is, and this is how we have to live our life.
I have to confess, maybe I didn't do that much a good job. It is not intentional. This is a serious condition, and first 2 years, probably I was almost crying, or I was in shock to accepting it. And after that, I was spending most of the time, what can I do? What can I do to fix this? So my focus was more on that. It's not like my intention, but I didn't take that active role with him. Otherwise, we treat him equally, but I did not, maybe he's missing some guidance from me that I feel I regret. But that's all I could do.
So switching to another dynamic in the family, you're both married to amazing people. So can you talk about how you've navigated this journey together as spouses?
I have a wonderful husband. We do everything together as a team for both of our children. We go probably to most doctor's appointments together, and I have a confession. I say most because Christopher is at a doctor's appointment, Buddy, Christopher, is at a doctor's appointment today that I am missing. So I can't say all appointments, but I can say most.
But based on the panel last night, that is actually a good thing. He's taking his medical care into his own hands, so that's great. He's well prepped, thanks to Dr. Cripe.
But my husband, he's, the way that he incorporated how to handle this is he's a tinkerer. He's science, background. So he tries to come up with things that would make it easier for my son. Putting a bag of rocks on the front door so Buddy can grab the door to close it, those types of things. But the story that I always think about, and Annie, you've heard it many, many years ago, when I just started dating my husband, it was close to Halloween, and my brother was 10. And he said he wanted to come and take him trick-or-treating. And I'm like, oh, yeah, sure, no pressure here. This means I may really have to like this guy. But he actually came to my house. My brother could not go up and down the steps, so he put my brother on his back and took him up and down the steps. And by the end of the evening, I'm like, I'm marrying that guy.
Great.
Yeah. Normally, the way we handle things in the house is like we divide the tasks. So I do certain things, she does certain things, and we don't do the same task. You do Monday, I do Tuesday. No, we divide the tasks. But in this one, we are like I don't know. In India, they call it Indian bullock carts. Usually, they have 2 bullocks, and they have to walk in lockstep. In this matter, in his case, we always walked in lockstep. But otherwise, my wife says, I say north and she says south. But here we always walk together.
All right, so let's talk about how your sons are becoming independent men and how that happens. and I think you both probably have a lot of examples you can share about this. So Grace, Buddy, lived on a residential campus, went away to school for 4 years, spent a year at Oxford, and traveled around Europe while he was there, and then came back and got his MFA at American. And then Tejas lives on campus at Harvard currently. So let's talk about how that happens. And they're also both really incredible self-advocates. So let's talk about the self-advocacy piece first. Can you talk about examples of how you incorporated them, whether it was going through school, maybe in community settings, in advocacy with you, or where they saw you advocating for them, where they may have learned to become advocates for themselves? How do you attribute their sense of self-advocacy and their strong ability to do that for themselves?
Buddy, we always kept him informed. He was not in the IEP meetings, but after them, we would sit him down and we would tell him what happened and explain and go through all of that. But the biggest thing for us was we wouldn't take no for an answer. Now it's all in how you say it, you know. So that was something that you have to learn. But we never took no for an answer. He knew that, and he also knew that, you know, some people want to be helpful and they don't know how. So we would tell him that if something happened that was different for him, that he couldn't do, needed help with, whether it was his friend, an adult, a teacher, he needed to ask, he needed to tell them. Because as helpful as they may be or may want to be, if they don't know what to do, they're not going to do it. So he used that as the way to move forward, so that, you know, we all through middle school, high school, I was always there. I was the one that would try and take care of the big things, and it was up for him to take care of the things that pertain to him, his schooling. You know, I would say, I'm not in the classroom. I don't know what you need help with. It's time for you to step up, pay attention, and see what you need. What is going to make it easier or more helpful for you to be treated and to learn just like anybody else in that room?
We have done many things for self-advocacy, but in the end, it's like driving. You can sit as a passenger, they can watch you, they can drive and you can sit next to them and tell them drive. One day you put them in the car, you don't sit with them. That's where they defend themselves. Initially we did, when I was a kid, we used to insist that he orders his own pizza, and he used to say, I sound like a boyish, or whatever it is, and nobody takes me serious. But we made him do. We used to take him to bank and leave him alone. You get your money, and the key is become invisible, just like how when you ride a bike, you hold the bike for some time, slowly step back, and leave. So we try to become ourselves invisible, so he has to handle himself.
We always, we said we always had to be creative. You have to be creative and tenacious to get what you need and what you want.
That's great. So I'm just guessing that your comfort level with these guys living on their own, not next door to you, didn't happen overnight. So can you talk a little bit about what that process looked like and how you helped them put the supports in place to be living independently, and maybe even what those conversations sounded like between you and your sons?
Well, it's definitely a process. I have to admit, the first time that Christopher was 7 and he went to MDA camp, my sister, who is a nurse, she didn't know it, but I volunteered her for that week so that she could be close by. So I've come a long way from that, but that was really hard. I was talking to my husband about this the other night to prepare, and we just said that it was just, it was a baby step type thing. It's not something that one day he woke up and he's like, oh, I'm going to Oxford, overseas. No, it was not that. It was the camp, and it was such a great experience for him, but it also was for us, because they did not call home. Was that a surprise? You really, we were told, yeah, midweek you get a phone call, and you didn't. And we survived. As parents, as a family, you survive. He went away when he was in high school to Louisville for a weekend away. Short term, we sent my brother-in-law with him. That's because you need somebody there if it's something that you're not really prepared for. By the time we got to college, we were all on board saying that if this is something that you would do for your able-bodied child, well, you're going to do it for your disabled child. There's just no difference. And we just figured it out as we went along. Like I said, I always tried to take care of the big things, transportation, how to get there, the room and board. After that, once you got there, it was up to him to go and talk and see how to get things going. He went to the University of Richmond, which could not have been better. He went there for governor's school the year before college, and they literally sent us the facility director's name. And we went down to meet her before he went there. She's like, what can we do? Where can we put you? How can we make things happen? Luckily, he went there for college as well. I have to say, when we went to Admitted Students Day, University of Richmond was not an accessible campus. It was a disaster. We could not get to anything. I mean, there was no curb cuts, driveways. I mean, he just could not even participate in it. And I just could not believe it. After being there for governor's school, they knew what his needs were, and then lo and behold, here we are in April. He's going to school in June, and they're not ready. I found my way that day to the disabilities office. I went in, I met the guy who was in charge of it, and I hate to say it, but I raised hell, because I thought, you made this offer to him, you wanted him here, because I'm not thinking, he's disabled and, woe is me, you have to help me. I'm thinking, you made him an offer, you need to make it work for him. He knew exactly what I was talking about, the director of disabilities, and from then on, it was clear sailing. We went down again in June, because they said, come down, we're making changes, we'll let you know what we're doing. And we were a little embarrassed, because when we pull in, there was literally 10 people outside this dorm. And we're like, is this good news or bad news? We did not have a clue. And as it turned out, there were architects there. They did whatever they needed to do. They made him an accessible room. They made an accessible whole dorm room so that he could go in and out of other rooms. I mean, they were so on board. Now, is it because I yelled? I don't know. So to get him to go overseas, yeah, that was a little harder. To this day, my husband and I say, what the hell were we thinking? We just did it. We just didn't think about it. We just did it. We knew we had Skype. We again relied on his university, Richmond, to help us, because we said again, okay, this is a program you offer all of your students. He's one of your students. How do we make it happen? And they contacted the disabilities people in Oxford, and that was our starting point, and we went from there. I guess we always just use it as, if it's something you would do for your able-bodied child, do it for your disabled child.
That's great.
We did some preparation, but in the end, it's like being on stage. You have to wing it there. As a Duchenne kids, Duchenne kids and the parents, we are much more prepared than any other person in transitions. We can transition. There are many things come on us without any notice, and we pull it through in the last minute. So I did initially try to send him to debate clubs and everything else, but once I took him to the Harvard campus, he didn't like the dorm beds, so I had to right away arrange a new hospital bed. He didn't like that hospital bed. I had to get the exact same bed like what in his room. So everything on the spot, making decisions. And he didn't like the aide, because most of the time I was helping with the bathroom. Now the aide guy has to help, but he got it just in no time. We have a lot of inner strength, and we can pull it through. So I thought it's hard, but we pull it through.
So how did Buddy and Tejas create their support systems away from home?
Well, Buddy's chatty. He likes to meet people. But I think he's well aware of the fact that because of his disability, he does need help, and he does have to ask. And in his phone, when he was at Richmond, he had the facilities director. Her name was in his phone, and if there was ever a problem, she was the one that he would ring up. So he has a lot of his friends in the neighborhood, and people that go to school. Once he went to school, that group, they just sort of were looking to him for guidance, and he would advise them as to how he needed help or what they would need to do for him.
Most of the time, Tejas, when he's in college, usually the support system is through clubs. So actually, he has one friend who has a Duchenne muscular dystrophy. He went to UPenn. The club he joined was one of those wrestling guys' clubs, so that they can lift him up.
That was smart.
And besides the clubs, of course, Tejas likes physical therapists, and he talks to them while they're stretching him. He's always part of their network.
That's great. So looking back, I don't think any of us would ever choose to be a part of the Duchenne community. But could you talk about if there's been any gifts that being a part of the community brought to your family, what you would say they were?
Chris and I were just talking about that question this morning. And I have to be really honest. The first time I read the question, I don't think of it as a gift. I really don't. It's something I grew up with. It's something that I'm living with now. It's hard. It's hard. What you think you're going to have, when you grow up in college and you meet the one, and you have all these ideas and these dreams, and then they change. It's not always easy. Some days are harder than others. I guess the one thing that we did get from it is I have a really strong family that's very supportive. We've even said that if it wasn't for my brother's disability, since there's 8 of us and we're all, different places, if it wasn't for him, I don't know if we would be as close as we are. We've met so many wonderful, wonderful, supportive people. I love you all. I love Annie, but is there anybody here that if you had a chance to trade it, that your child wouldn't have this disability? I can't say I wouldn't want to trade it and have him not have it.
For me, it's like always, I look for what's purpose in life. This is really, sometimes I find it's one of my purposes in life. It gives me great pleasure helping my son I tell my son, you don't have to say sorry to me. I'm here, I get a greatest pleasure. And I'm very content with whatever the Duchenne, whatever it gives me. I feel good. And of course, we are all close as a family. In this aspect, me and my wife don't fight. We're all together. So we're together as a family, and I'm thankful for everything.
So there are a number of parents in the room who are earlier on the journey than you, and then there are parents of men who are just considering going to college and starting out on this. What would you want those parents to know as their sons, and some of the sons were talking last night about trying to have hard conversations with their parents about starting to, give some space or let go. So what would you want parents to know? Because it is hard. It is hard. So what would you want parents to know?
I just think that you know your child best. I've said that already. If you had an able-bodied child and they wanted to go to college and they wanted to go pursue their dreams, would you even stop and think about it? Would you even be hesitating, or would you be going full steam ahead and helping them to realize their dreams? And that's the bottom line. I mean, they were born with disability. It's like somebody's born with blonde hair and blue eyes. You can't change it. You just have to deal with it. And you don't, like somebody who's blonde doesn't say, oh, everybody says, I can't do this or I can't do that. They do what they have to do. And if you're disabled, you just have to give them the tools and the skills to move ahead. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. The philosophy that I always follow, and I tell anybody that is going to help Christopher or planning or whatever, is plan for the unexpected. It will happen. You all know it will happen. Christopher, one time in Richmond, they were going on a field trip with a club that he was with, and the professor who was handling it, she went above and beyond, making sure that everything would be taken care of. And she kept calling me. She wanted to be perfect. She wanted to prove to me that the school was really doing what Christopher needed. And of course, something went wrong. And she was so sad and so upset that she called me at home. And she's like, I apologize. We should have taken better care of it. And I told her the only thing that she had done wrong was she didn't plan for something to go wrong. Because it's going to go wrong. And if you know that's what's going to happen, you plan for the unexpected, you're ready for it.
Well, I just want to thank you both for being here this morning, being on this panel, and being so honest and candid with everybody, and for raising such phenomenal men who are bringing so much to our community. So thank you.